difference between a wealth creator's relationship with their money and an inheritor's is the wealth creator is future focused and abundance oriented, and they are revered in society, and they're confident. And yet a inheritor is legacy focused and scarcity oriented. Like, are they going to be able to, if they have a loss, will they be, how much can they spend? And they have to deal with people who have a hostile envy towards them. They are not respected in society, at least particularly in America.
I'm Rachel Green, divorce mediator and collaborative attorney. Join me as I chat about everything from smoothly navigating your way through divorce to prenups, all the while keeping the kids in mind. Hi, I'm Rachel Green, and welcome to Keep the Kids in Mind. Today, I am really looking forward to speaking with Myra Salzer, who is an advocate for individuals who have inherited significant wealth. With her team at the Wealth Conservancy, she provides empowering coaching to help clients align their self-worth and net worth. Myra coaches wealth holders on how to give to the kids while enhancing relationships. She's emboldened by finances, which enables her to bring perspective to clients who have come into a lot of money. Myra, so great that you could be on the podcast, and welcome.
I think this will be fun.
So just to start, please tell our listeners what you do and how you came to do this and what drew you to this work.
What we do is we help people who have inherited a great deal of money, engage in their money, understand their options, their boundaries, and understand how their money influences their relationships and how to give to their children in a powerful way that will enhance the relationship rather than diminish it. I was a starving fee-only financial advisor in the 80s, and a couple made an appointment, and I was like excited. Oh boy, a potential client. And I had my blue suit on, and I rented the conference room, and they had a 10 o'clock appointment, and I was in there ready at 10 o'clock, and they didn't come. And I was like about to give up, but they came in finally almost 11:15. And I asked, well, how can I help you? And he's like, not making contact. And he says, the only known source of income I've ever had is just dissipated. I don't know what to do. And I thought, well, shoot, this is not what I was hoping for. And then I noticed she's playing with her ring, and her stone of her ring was on the palm side of her hand. And I didn't want to talk about him not having any income anymore. So I asked about the ring, and she slowly turned the stone around. Don't know much about jewelry, but this was a rock. And I asked about it, and she said, yeah, just got it. I said, oh, where did you get it? And she said, well, Turtles, which is a jewelry store right around the corner from my office. And I said, when did you get it? And she said, well, that's why we relate. And I thought, wait a minute, you probably spent $25,000 on this emerald and you don't have any income anymore? And I looked at him, and he's like, again, not making eye contact. And she said, well, actually, it was $60,000, not 25.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, whoa, something's wrong with this picture. And he said, oh, I know. I've lived off my trust income all my life. And I just turned 35 last week, and my trust terminated. And I don't have any income anymore, but now I have $18 million. I don't know what to do with it. And I thought, oh, they did not tell us how to deal with this at the College for Financial Planning. And the very next day, another potential client came in with an inheritance and a really screwy relationship with her money. And I thought, well, if I could just get these people together, they can support themselves, and then I can do some real financial planning. So I started a workshop, and the workshop was Inherited Wealth in You. And to come to the workshop, they must have inherited enough that paid work did not make a difference in their lives. And that first workshop was totally full. And I started doing workshops every year. And that's what begot the specialty of working only with people with very large inheritances.
And it's so funny because I think the general population feels like people who have money like that have no problems at all. And it turns out that to be, quite the contrary. There's no human who has no problems at all,
Yes,
including multimillionaires.
yes. And I think that people with a lot of financial resources have different problems.
Yes.
And a lot of their problems can be motivational problems, relationship problems. If it's known that you have a great deal of money, do people like you because you have that money?
Right.
Do people ask for loans? What do you do when a cousin wants, to borrow some money? How do you say no? And then the challenging part of parenting. How do you give to your kids in a way that enhances the relationship without destroying their drive,
Right.
without so we do a lot with multi-generational planning too, just to keep those relationships going in a positive way and to make sure that our clients are confident in their giving. And I know that sounds like, how would you not be confident? But when you didn't earn it yourself, you own it in a different way.
I definitely see that with clients of mine. Money means more than just money. I was working with a couple who were having a lot of trouble coming to settlement. And it turned out, as we're discussing things, that the wife had this investment account with $850,000 in it. And they had, I don't know, $80,000 of debt, credit card debt. And I said, well, in what way does it make sense that you're not paying off your credit card debt when you have this money? And she said, no, I inherited that money from my mother. And that's separate. That has nothing to do with our marriage. So even though it's all money and it's fungible, it's interchangeable, but they couldn't do what any financial expert would tell them is the right thing to do and pay off the credit card debt. Instead, they were paying, this high interest to keep all this debt because this money couldn't be touched. It was her mother. It was all she had left of her mother.
The emotional connection to an inheritance can be powerful, but keeping inherited property separate is often a wise thing unless there's a prenuptial agreement where 850,000 for a lot of people is a lot of money. If you have 850 million or 8,500,000, that becomes a real challenge in terms of doing what is fair. How do you have a fair prenuptial agreement when there's that kind of disparity within a relationship? Especially, and I know this sounds sexist, but especially if it's the female who has the inheritance. So often that can feel emasculating to the male.
Interesting. So you see a difference in the way people perceive the money if it's the woman who now is the higher net worth person versus the man.
Yes.
I had a consultation with a couple for a prenup, and she was going to be inheriting 200 million from her family, and he was run of the middle class guy. So I started talking about what options there were for them. I thought they wouldn't want the balance of power to be like this. Like if they're going on vacation, but she's paying for the whole thing, does she get to choose where they go on vacation, for example? And I talked about ways that they could structure things and slowly transfer some wealth into his name so that he would at least feel like he had some independence, and she's not going to transfer $100 million to him. And I didn't think that she should, but they were stymied by the whole thing. What would you recommend to a couple like that for the terms of the prenup?
Well, I had a client where the disparity of wealth was kind of the same, but it it was her second marriage. Her mother died when she was 21, and so she was married at the time. She had an infant and a 2-year-old, and she was thrust into settling the estate, helping her 12-year-old brother and taking care of him, as well as the infant and the 2-year-old. And the week her mother died, and it was well known in this part of the country that this family had a lot of financial resources, that her husband quit his job, figured, okay, it's all good for now. He became an alcoholic and she divorced him. Then she met this lovely, lovely gentleman who happened to be a successful orthodontist. And he was a great parent to her kids, and they did get married, and they did not have a prenuptial agreement. They filed their first tax return, and he learned that his gross income from the practice was not enough to pay the taxes on her passive income. And this just really threw him, because his sense of accomplishment and self and confidence was kind of tied up in his success. And what we did was we set up a system where let's just say his income was 1/10 of hers. And so both of them, put all of their income into a household account, 1/10 and 9/10.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid for everything out of that, the vacations, the maid, the grocery, I mean, everything, tuition, everything came out of this household account. And at the end of the quarter, with all that was left, he got 1/10 and she got 9/10. And that became theirs. And they didn't have to decide who was what or how to give it away or give to charity or anything like that. And so he had his own money. He was able to buy her a birthday present without borrowing from her. And she was able to give to her kids or do whatever she wanted with hers. But that's how that worked really well for them. I'm not saying that will work for everybody, but that is one way that he was able to feel like he's making a contribution to the household and he was not losing control. And that marriage has lasted 4 years.
That's a lovely story. This kind of discussion happens more in my practice for prenups than in divorce. The tension that can arise when there's a lot of money involved and disparate circumstances between the couple is something that we have to look at squarely when we're talking about a prenup. And I had a couple who came in, and she was a member of a family that started a business in the 1800s. That's a big name brand. It wasn't Kellogg's, but like Kellogg's, some company that's just been around for a long time. Her grandfather put a lot of assets in trust, and she had about 14 million, but she was going to be getting more when she turned 30 and then 35 and then I think 40. She got the whole shebang, and she didn't know exactly how much it was going to be, but it was going to be a lot. And she was the youngest of 6 kids, and all her siblings were divorced. All 5 of the older siblings were divorced. And she was in love with this gentleman and wanted to marry him and didn't want to make the mistakes that she saw her siblings make. And she did see that there was a lot of tension in their marriages. And we kind of brainstormed. We had like a very meaningful mediation process where they talked about how they felt. And the guy was able to articulate how he felt somewhat intimidated by her money. He had a rent controlled apartment in Manhattan, which is a very valuable thing. He had very low rent forever if he stayed there. And he was planning to give up his apartment in Manhattan and move where she had a big house. But he said, if we separated, what would happen to me then? I won't have my apartment. So they said, okay, if they separate, she will buy him an apartment. And then we talked about, the scenario of the vacation. Who would make the decisions about going on vacation if she was paying for most of it. And then they wanted to make that have parity in the input as to where they go and what they did on a vacation. And then they did come up with an agreement where she would transfer money to him over 10 years. And it really worked. I think having the conversations before they got married was very useful for them. And they are still married. And it's
how nice.
Coming up on 20 years now. So,
oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I love that. She recognizing that her siblings did not succeed in maintaining a marriage was a real eye-opener for her, and she used that information intelligently. But what often happens with inheritors is they lack conflict resolution skills. And that's because they have enough to buy their way out of problems. If they don't get along with the boss, they can quit. If they don't like their landlord, they can buy the building. So you see that a lot of heirs lack that conflict resolution skill, and those skills help develop maturity. And so she didn't have to go through those hard lessons because she saw her siblings do that. And that enabled her to develop the maturity to obviously have a successful marriage, which is lovely.
Yeah, it was lovely. And to make different choices and to kind of, that's so interesting that people who are that wealthy can buy their way out of a conflict.
My strategic coach used to say, if you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't have a problem. It's true. You just get other problems as a result sometimes.
Right. And then how to have a relationship where there's parity emotionally is a challenge.
Yes. And you would think that the moneyed spouse has the power and therefore the confidence and that would be the overpowering partner. But that often isn't the case, because when you've received something for nothing, for not having done anything, there's this disconnect between self-worth and net worth. And so often there's an overcompensation on the moneyed spouse's part, and the non-moneyed spouse can frequently take control in a way that if they both had earned their money, it wouldn't have happened that way.
And I've also seen people who feel like they're afraid to use their money. They're afraid to spend it because they don't quite know how they got it. And when you earn money yourself, you know how you got it. You know what you did. You know how hard you worked. You know how you structured your relationship with a client. And you know how you got the money. And that can feel empowering to somebody who earns it themselves.
Totally.
And people who didn't earn it themselves can feel like a little scared to use it because they don't know why they have it. They don't know how to get more. They don't know.
Exactly. So the difference between a wealth creator's relationship with their money and an inheritor's is the wealth creator is future focused and abundance oriented, and they are revered in society, and they're confident. And yet a inheritor is legacy focused and scarcity oriented. Like, are they going to be able to, if they have a loss, will they be, how much can they spend? And they have to deal with people who have a hostile envy towards them. They are not respected in society, at least particularly in America.
I'm making notes because I love that contrast. The future focused versus legacy focused, the scarcity versus the abundance.
Abundance.
Yeah. And then we here culturally don't respect the children of the earners.
And they didn't do anything to be in that position.
Right. Right. But I think that's true. If you watch Saturday Night Live, they make fun of Donald Trump's kids all the time.
Yeah.
Or Paris Hilton, they become a joke. So what are some tools or tips or ways to look at how to pass down money to your children?
I always like to recommend our Way into Wealth program. It's an 8-session one-on-one with Melissa Hoyer here at the Wealth Conservancy. And it helps wealth holders and their children understand their relationship with their wealth. They get to understand what their wealth or money archetype is, and then how to work with each other on how to communicate about wealth and how to respect each other's differences with respect to their archetypes. So wayintowealth.com. Really, I think, a first step that any inheritor would want to take to understand who they are as a result of their inheritance and how to maximize who they are and live as full a life as possible. I know that sounds so cliche. I apologize, but that's what the program does.
I think about Warren Buffett, and I mean, his children all seem very hardworking, and they seem to have come through having their father as one of the richest people on earth, and come through with a very healthy attitude and good motivation to work. And and I find myself wondering, what did he do that?
Yeah, well, Peter Buffett did a testimonial for my third book, and
Oh,
it
how
was very
nice.
sweet. He's a lovely gentleman and a pretty darn good musician. And they're all truly philanthropically oriented because Warren is, and I don't know him personally, but he's has a reputation for not being defined by his wealth. He lives in the same house he lived in the 50s.
Right, I
And
know.
he's so unpretentious. And his relationship is with his work, not his money.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's one of the takeaways. Your relationship should be with your work, not your money. Money is a byproduct of your work. I'm just thinking about a couple I did a prenup for, and the wife's parents bought a house for them to live in right before they got married. And they did a prenup saying this was her house. And if they ever split up, it would be hers. And 5 years later, I got a call and they said, "Can we come back in to talk about a prenup?" I said, "Sure." They came in and they sat down and she said, "We want to rescind the prenup. We want to cancel it because this is our house. We live in it together. We've had our 2 kids in it. We've renovated it and suffered through the inconvenience of that. He's done some of it with his own, blood,
Sure.
sweat, and tears. And it's hurting our relationship for it to be my house. It's not my house. It's our house." So they rescinded the prenup. But it's another example of how the uneven resources can just taint a
Sure.
relationship and cause tension in the relationship. And if you don't see that coming, and if you don't anticipate that, you can't mitigate the results.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
It's
don't know
true.
if you saw the show on Netflix called Seven Figures.
No, I didn't.
I recommend it. It's about lottery winners.
Ah,
And in this fictitious world, they have to take an 8-week class before they can get their payouts. And it's just fascinating to see how just the idea that they're going to get the payout changes so many relationships. I started watching it. I couldn't stop watching. I was dreaming about
Oh,
these
that's funny.
people. And
Seven
it was
figures. I'll have
yeah,
to remember that.
yeah.
The lottery winners are different. And um, and the reason, number one, they're public. Number two, they're the only one in the family that's in that position.
Uh,
So all their relationships with their family members, their friends, they're jerked out of their socioeconomic environment. And everybody knows it. So, they get the marriage proposals and they get the, requests for loans and everything. And they've shown over and over again how in a very short period of time, the lottery winners' financial circumstances revert back to what it was before or lower than when they won the lottery.
really?
So it's their circumstances is more like a very successful football player or basketball player, where they're they are the only one in the family who's making money like that, and they're public figures and they're young, and so it's great that they have those courses for the lottery winners. I think that's a lovely segue into money ownership and the responsibility thereof.
So, do you have any particular takeaways?
Anyone who has questions about or concerns and just wants to have a half-hour chat, they can go sign up for a half hour with me at no charge on our website. It's thewealthconservancy.com.
And we'll put this in the show notes as well, so
Great.
people can find you.
And I'm happy to just shoot the breeze and see what we can do. And sometimes I point people in the right direction, sometimes I help a lot, and sometimes I don't help at all.
Well, I'm sure you do your best to try to help as much as you can.
I do my best.
And is there, like, generally, do you have a minimum of assets that they've inherited
Yeah.
that
So
you
to retain us, I would say it wouldn't make sense for someone with under 10 million to retain us, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't get a lot out of the Way into Wealth program,
Yeah,
which is just that 8-session offering we have.
I
One
feel
on
like
one.
I'd like to take it just to learn about
Yeah, yeah,
how, different tools people have. I know someone who sold the company for tens of millions of dollars. So suddenly, I mean, they're having a lot of, he's having a lot of challenges with it because, first of all, he built this
yes,
software that
yeah,
somebody felt was that valuable. And he's dedicated his life. And now suddenly he just sold the whole
yeah.
thing. And I mean, he's going to be working in the company for a few years, but he feels mourning.
Yeah, he's deracinated, and yeah, he would be actually a perfect person to deal with to have the Way into Wealth program,
Yeah.
to
I'm
understand
going to
how
email him
it
later.
shifts.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Uh, Anyone whose financial circumstances has changed and they aren't used to it, integrated with it, comfortable with it, it's new for them, they can do this and program and understand where they are and how to get to where they want to be, help define where they want to be. Because his whole definition of himself has been in this company. And now he has to
And now
find a new self.
find a new self. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, Myra. We
This was
can wrap it
fun.
up. Yeah, it was really fun talking to you as well, and I'm fascinated by this whole subject.
Great.
Thanks so much for coming on. Keep the
Thank you,
Kids Alive.
Rachel.
Take
This
care.
was fun.